We're going to do a walkthrough on a 22 kW Generac generator system, air-cooled, with a 200 amp service-rated transfer switch. And I'm going to show you a couple touch points on a customer walkthrough. We have this system here has a 2 emergency shutdowns, one here on the back. Not sure if you can see that or not, but there's one right here on the back, and that will trigger a red light. That red light then can be reset. Underneath the hood here we have the controller. The controller has an alarm auxiliary shutdown. There's also an auxiliary shutdown right here, and that would also trigger the same alarm. In order to reset that, what you have to do is you have to then push off, enter, and then you're ready to run when you push green auto. So now this generator is ready to run, and we've actually canceled out all the alarms, and it's good to go. You can see here it says ready to run. In order to check this engine oil, which ought to be done on every other day of continuous operation, there's a dipstick, and you can see there that it's filled up on oil. This dipstick's no different than a car dipstick. You want to pull it out, wipe it off, check it, put it back in, recheck it. Where you fill the oil is this lid just pops off, just sets down in a couple points here, and you want to fill that oil right in that orange cap. That's where you'd fill the oil. All of the customer information on this generator is listed down here. It tells the KW, it tells the IDM number, and the size of the amperage that this unit will output. This door right back. Door slides right back in like that. Underneath here is the air cleaner. This is the 100 amp breaker that controls the unit output. If that is in the off position, if the generator is running, it will not produce power into the house. So if we are using this generator and we need to check the oil in the middle of an outage, what we need to do is, the first thing you need to do is shut off this breaker. That frees it up from the house. So let's say your power's out, you're running on automatic standby power, and you need to check the oil. It's been a day and a half. You're into the second day of continuous operation. You pull this breaker back to relieve it from the house so that it's not powering the house any longer. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to shut this unit to the off position. Red light will appear, it'll shut down. It's obviously would be running in that condition. It'll shut down, leave it set for 5 or 10 minutes. Let the oil settle down in the bottom of the engine. Then you're going to check the oil, just like I showed you there. Then you're going to add some if necessary. Make sure you you're going to pull this door off, add it, just like I showed you the point to add there. Check it again. This unit only holds 1.9 quarts, therefore it's easy to overfill, and you do not want to do that, as it will build up oil in this air cleaner and then cause the unit to shut down prematurely on just basically getting oil down in the cylinders and causing the spark plugs not to work properly. So if it's low on oil when you check it, add about half a pint, and then check it again. You're better to leave it just a tick low in between the 2 dots listed on the dipstick there than you are to overfill it. So leave it a little bit low or in the middle is better than and too high. When you get all done, you've added oil, you're complete with that task. Put it back in auto, the unit will say, if your power's still out, it'll say utility off, and it'll have a 10-second countdown. The unit will start up, and once it starts up, then go ahead and turn this breaker back on. Now we're connected back to the house. Now we're ready to run for an additional 2 days before we have to go through that process again. Every 4 days of continuous operation or an accumulative thereof, so 96 hours, the engine oil ought to be changed. And that's a service that we perform. Call us at Weekley Electric, 740-366-0095, and we would get that scheduled for you. We're going to ask you some questions like, does it sound like in your area the outage is going to continue? If it does, then we'll get that on the schedule to come out and do that, to replace that oil and engine oil filter, spark plugs. We do a 25-point inspection. This has 2 spark plugs. We change both of them. We test the battery during a preventative maintenance. Change engine oil, as I mentioned. Oil filter, air filter is we replace, and then we check and do a load test, make sure everything's performing properly, and then you're good to go then for another 100 hours or a year, whichever comes first. So in the event that you have an extended outage, or it's been a year, whichever comes first, the 100 hours or a year, then you need to give us a call, and we need to come out and do the preventative maintenance. When the unit is ready to run, you're going to see a green light like this. So you're getting ready to go on a trip, you hear of a storm coming, you want to come out here and check to make sure this green light's on. If this green light is on, that means 2 things. That means, 1, it is ready to run the event your power fails. The second thing it means is that it exercised last week. So your exercise cycle is around 7 minutes on this model. It's going to run. It does not interrupt your power when it runs. That exerciser is set for whatever time and day you set up with the technician when we did the installation. It can be changed. So that's in the edit menu, and that is something that we can walk you through or change it when we do a preventative maintenance. If you're concerned that your unit didn't exercise, let's say last week, but you have a green light on, I can tell you that it did exercise last week, and it's set to run if the power was to fail. You can certainly go in and look at the exercise time and day, the current time it has there, the exercise, go over here, you can look through this, and if you go to the edit menu, that's where your exercise would be found, and you funnel through these. It's on natural gas. It's set for cold start. Your current time is listed there, and your exercise time is noon on Wednesdays, and it's set to exercise every week. So that's where you would change your exercise time in the event that you wanted to change it to a different day or time. So once again, if you're in the midst of an outage, you want to check that oil every other day. Make sure the green light's on when you leave the unit. Whenever you're doing anything on the unit, if you want it to run during an outage, make sure that green light's on. If for some reason there's an error, as I mentioned, whether it's shut off or whether there's actually an alarm, it's going to show a red light, which is shown there. If the unit is due for maintenance, it will show a yellow light. That is a light that I cannot force at this particular time. However, there's 3 lights in there: a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. As long as it has the green, even though it may be accompanied by a yellow, it is ready to run, and it did exercise last week. So that's most all the components that you need to review or that we need to discuss inside the generator. When it comes to these locks on the lid, I typically tell customers do not lock it. So what you see here is the gas line and the electric going into the back of the unit. There's a appliance shut off right there for the gas. This here is the puck, the Wi-Fi puck. When installed, that allows for it to be connected to Mobile Link and Fleet. So I'm going to walk over and show you the transfer switch, and we'll go through the operation of the transfer switch, which works in conjunction with this. So let's go take a look at that. So the transfer switch is here on the back of this house. It's tied in to the customer's meter here, and underneath this cover is where there's a manual override and a disconnect switch. So right here is the disconnect for the house. That shuts the house off, and if you did that right now, the generator would start and run just like the power failed, because by doing that, we are killing the power to the house, and the generator sees that as being an outage. Right inside here, there is a manual override. That manual override is yellow on yellow. There's a yellow square in there. This goes in that, and if I pull down on that and pull it down to here, that would be on generator, standby generator. However, the generator has to be running in order to do that. So if I was doing this, in the event that the system did not work properly and the power was out, we would go out there and start that manually, start the generator manually, which I'll go back over and show you the manual operation now that we're coupling that with the generator. You would start the generator manually, and you would come over here and you would pull down on that lever. This lever here, you'd pull down. You do not have to shut that off, because we're talking about a condition where your power is already off. So in that condition, you would start the generator manually, and you know, we're talking about a situation where the generator did not perform its automatic function properly, but yet your power is out. You make sure all conditions are well. You go start the generator manually. You come over here, yellow on yellow. Once again, it's up in this little slit here, and it shows how this operation works on this white piece of paper here. You take this stick, you put in there, and you pull that down once the generator's already running. Now you would be on generator power. When the power comes back on, that should flip back up, provided the connections on that side are correct. And if it did, then the generator would probably shut back down. If it didn't, you may have to shut it. I'm sorry, the generator's on manual, so you'd have to physically go out there and shut that off, and this should trip back up by itself. If not, you'd have to put this in there and switch up. Now we're talking about a situation where it did not perform properly, so those type of things could result in different conditions, but this is a manual override. We would talk you through that on the phone. In the event that your power failed and it did not work properly, we'd say, hey, take the yellow stick, put in there after you get the generator started manually, and pull down on that. So the only what would cause that, some fuses blown, a loss of communication, controller have an issue. You know, those are just some of the things that would cause that. So we're going to go back over there and show you the manual operation now that we showed you why you would use the manual operation. So that's pretty much all to see in here. So yeah, if the generator's in manual, it will not shut off unless you physically shut it off. It's going to run until, as long as it has what it needs, it's going to run until you shut it off. So we're going to unlock this generator, and I'll show you that manual operation now that we've seen where it can come into play. So once again, we'll unlock the unit. So we're in the middle of an outage. The generator did not perform properly. We want to start it up manually. And then we're going to go over and we're going to flip that lever down. The other times that you might want to do that is after service. We start it up manually, make sure there's no oil leaking or anything like that. So that's how you start it manually. And once again, it's going to run until you shut it off. Press off, and then when we go to auto function, we want to go back and push the auto button. So that was a manual operation. And that'll be all that we have for this orientation.